Welcome to the One Deeper podcast, where I try to strum the strings of the network around me and listen to the music. My guest on this episode is Dr. Paula Roncaglia. Dr. Roncaglia is an assistant professor at the Tilburg School of Humanities and Digital Sciences in the Department of Cognitive Science and AI. She teaches a course on language and music perception. I had the pleasure of experiencing her enthusiasm for teaching firsthand, so I'm excited to share this conversation with you. I also want to thank you in advance for your patience with this show and listening. It's a work in progress and I'm just getting started. I'm always aiming to improve and I appreciate your time and your feedback. That being said, please enjoy this short conversation with Dr. Paula Roncaglia. And live. Dr. Rancoglia. Oh, she just got. You have a hyphenated last name. Like, how do you go? Like Rancoglia?
Roncaglia-Denissen. Well, that is like my publishing name is Roncaglia-Denissen, so you can see my publications with that, with a hyphen.
Yeah, that's what I found.
Yes, but the whole administration of the university, it's only Roncaglia, and
Okay.
so.
Nice. So well, first of all, thank you for sitting down with me today. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy person. And I had some I actually wanted to talk to you during when we had the class when I took your class, right?
Yeah.
And because I found the class pretty challenging, right? And what's funny is that I'll be honest, it wasn't my favorite class, right?
Okay.
Because I'm not intrinsically motivated about language. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
But what that course did teach me was that I was pretty ignorant.
Oh.
Right?
Well.
Because when I went into it, I thought language was pretty much figured out, right? Like I was pretty convinced that like we have this sorted, we've been doing this for millions of years. Like what's the problem?
Yes.
But yeah.
Well, first of all, thank you for being honest about that it's not your favorite course. And I still don't get that. Language is the most fascinating thing in cognition that we can possibly have. Anyways, that's also a different take on it.
No, even though that being said, I track everything that I do, right? So all the time that I spend doing something, I track it.
Yeah.
That being said, I spent the most time that semester on your class.
Thank you. I really
So
appreciate
like
that.
almost I think I spent close to 200 hours on it.
Yeah, they're
Just
supposed to do that.
yeah.
Because I also explained to you like about the six ECTs, right? So what they mean. So it means that you have to put in average in this course 184 hours, right? So
Mhm.
you did a little bit more than what is the minimum, right? But
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
that's expected. So that's
Like
good.
the best thing I think the most valuable thing of course I learned a lot about language, but the most valuable thing I got from their class was just experience reading papers.
Yes.
So it's coming so handy now, right? Like I don't have like I have like a general feel for how a paper is structured and like
Yeah.
where the things I want to find will be located, so like I can just like quickly go to where I need to go. That is unbelievably helpful.
That's
For sure.
I'm very happy you're saying that, this Udesh, because the students they get very much scared when they come to my
Hmm.
course, and I also understand that I was just like throwing them into the water and just say, okay, just swim. The earlier you get to swim, the better for you.
Yeah.
But I'm also like I love teaching, and I'm constantly thinking about how can I reach students, how can I make sure that I'm not going to take anything for granted. I'm not going to assume anything. I just want to give the students the direction. I'm going to give them the direction where they should go. But how much should I help them in this? So this edition of this course, I'm redesigning it to include a more explicitly teaching of how to read a paper.
For
Because I
sure.
know everybody has to, in the end, everybody has to do it, and they have to learn by themselves. But I creating a little bit more clear guidelines to help students in this, because um, when I was a bachelor student, nobody taught me this, and it was very
Right.
difficult, right? And
Hmm.
and I think that it doesn't have to be that traumatic. I think
Traumatic. I like how you put that. It's traumatic.
yes, it can have some help. So that's what I'm trying to do right now in this
Yeah, for sure.
edition of the course. But I really appreciate that you also came to this conclusion. It's very, very nice to hear that.
like it's I a scientific paper is actually very different from most other things you'd read in your life.
Completely different. Completely
It's
different.
so different,
And the other thing
and the
that,
language is different, and
yes,
like the idea is sort of very it's a very different way of writing because you have such a small amount of space, right?
but
And
also I have to try to think about the purpose of a scientific paper, right? So, what was the deal with why did scholars start writing scientific papers? Because they wanted to communicate to other scholars in their field their discoveries and their insights. So it has to
Mhm.
be they write to a very specific public, very knowledgeable public, but still that maybe don't have a complete understanding of the field, but they should be able to get the right information from that. So this is why it makes so difficult. So also the size of it has to be concise, has to be to the point, because nobody has time to spend that much time writing about things when the things are moving, when the field is moving.
So let me ask you a question. So, like, let's say you're about to work on a new project or like with a new team,
Yeah.
let's say, right? And like, I mean, you're working on I mean, the goal is to create a publishable product, like a
Yes.
paper, right? Let's
Well,
say so. Let's say like you have a team from different universities, right?
yeah.
And if the let's say so I'm just working off my rudimentary understanding of this
Yeah.
whole process, right?
Hmm.
So let's say so one university gets funding for whatever project, and they put a team together, right?
Hmm.
And let's say you don't exactly have the expertise in
Hmm.
that particular, like, whatever topic it is, but you
Yeah.
have the general expertise that they need, right?
Hmm.
So what's your first approach? Do you just like read a bunch of review articles, like, just to get up to speed on the topic? Like, what's the strategy?
Okay. So first of all, my ultimate goal is not to publish. My ultimate
Yeah,
goal is
no, no,
to,
no. Okay, fine, fair.
yeah.
That's
So
okay. True.
publication is the result of what you do,
Right.
and there
Yeah.
I have several studies that I started, and I couldn't publish them yet because things
Okay.
have to be readapt, redesigned. So the ultimate goal is to understand, in my case, to understand how language works.
Hmm.
So, and sometimes you come up with this experimental design, you dedicate a lot of time into that, and you collect data, and eventually you realize that that experimental design is not ideal for that because there are other some
Hmm.
confounds that you cannot control for it. So you have to go back to the drawing table, reorganize, redesign an experiment, and collect data again. And sometimes I don't know, maybe you tried to replicate something and you just didn't follow exactly, didn't have exactly the same conditions, and so it doesn't mean. What I mean is that not everything is publishable, but it
Hmm.
still doesn't mean that it's less valuable because
No, absolutely. Yeah.
it is about understanding and a little bit an extra piece of the puzzle, right?
Right.
So, but your question, it's something that about how I go about something that I'm not really the expert in, and that's something that is recurrent in my life because I am a linguist by training,
Hmm.
and I did my PhD in neuropsychological processing of language. So it is a slightly different take on language research. Uh, so I got in the end a PhD in cognitive science, and I worked as a researcher in a computational science group, and now I'm in artificial intelligence, right? So I
Right.
collaborate with linguists, I collaborate with cognitive scientists, I collaborate with neuroscientists, I collaborate with music cognition scientists. I collaborate with artificial intelligence
Right.
researchers. So basically, I'm everywhere, and
Right.
I like being like this. I think that it opens horizons and also gets a better understanding of things, but also the constantly feeling that you don't know anything. That's also something that I actually quite enjoy. Um,
You seem like that's a very rare breed of people, like, because for most people it's pretty anxiety provoking, right? Like, to
no,
constantly be.
to me as well, but I make sure that whenever I start a project, I make sure that I'm the one who knows the least. So if this is the case, then I learned a lot and I make this
Right.
fun for me.
Right, right.
So right. So what happens then? I'm very used to getting to areas that are not of mine, of expertise. And what do? I team up with individuals that are expert in that, and I start reading and start learning. And I've done these changes several times in my life. Actually, when I did my master's thesis, was slightly off my field. When I did my PhD, was off my field. When I did um, my postdoc experience, I went to the research field of music cognition that I was completely naive of. I had no idea of, and I thought was very nice. And I spent 4 years working in that, and I became certain kind of expert in it. Sometimes,
Hmm.
even today, when somebody says, "Oh, you should know this because you're the expert," I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm the expert. That's so bad. I mean, like we have to find somebody else, you know." But that's something that's very common among researchers as well. The more you learn and the more you know, the less you think you know.
Right, 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 for sure.
And I feel very comfortable in that, in this role of thinking I don't know anything. That's for me is some kind of like nice. It makes the work.
It's interesting, right? Like it's a nice, it keeps you like it keeps it like I find it keeps you motivated. Like sometimes, I mean, I try to put myself in those situations,
Hmm.
but I I I I've learned that to do that, I have to really check my ego. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, cause like I get sometimes I'll get used to being like good at something, and then whenever I'm confronted with something I don't understand, my initial reaction is not like curiosity. It's like
Mhm.
frustration. Like, man,
Yes,
why am I
it
not
is
good at
also
this?
okay. This is also a very valid tool. I also get frustrated if I don't know something. But my frustration sometimes keeps me going and looking for the answer and trying to see it. And yes, I think this is also a very valid feeling. And curiosity, frustration, whatever leads you to the next step, and continue pursuing the truth. It's what
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah. Did you always want to be a scientist like when you were in school?
No, 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 and I'm not a no, and I'm not a born scientist. There are some
Right.
people who really enjoy this intellectual talk and just discussing things for discussing them and not really right. And I'm not one of those people. I have a very specific interest, and I am very passionate about teaching. I love teaching. I think that's my role in let's say if you can talk about what your contribution to society. I think mine is to teach. It's something that I
Well,
really
I
value.
let me tell you that comes across.
Oh, that's good.
I'm
Thank you.
like it comes across like to a really high degree when you're teaching. So like in your
Yeah,
I've had multiple of my colleagues tell me that
that's
like
nice.
it's just like an infectious sort of enthusiasm for what you
Yeah,
teach, and that sort of like annoys them into like into working hard.
yeah, that's
It's
nice.
kind of nice, right?
It's not my idea, but sure, I'm happy with anything I can take. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I really so this is something that I love doing, and that's my curiosity is because I want to be the best teacher I can possibly be. And I think to be the best teacher I can possibly be, I have to be on top of what's going on. I have to do research myself, and I have to be able to not answer all the questions of my students, but at least to point to the right direction so they can look for more answers. You know, so this is how I see. I think everything that I do in my work and everything that I read is to make me a better teacher. So that's how I see it.
So like okay, so how long have you been teaching for? Like what like
Oh,
how because it
ages.
feels like you've been doing this forever.
Yes, I have been doing forever. Um, at university level, I've been teaching since like for 10 years now officially.
10 years.
Hmm.
That's a long time.
But the first 5 years is something that I voluntarily did. So I was a researcher, I was a postdoc, and
Right.
so as a postdoc, as a postdoc researcher, you don't get to do any teaching because you're hired to do a research. Some normally is that somebody else got the money for a specific the funding for a specific research, and they hire somebody to conduct that research. And but I just realized that I felt my work so empty, just going to the lab and collecting data and analyzing and writing things down, and I'm just like, this is not, I don't see any fulfillment in that. It was kind of fun, but it's very empty for me. So I
Mm.
always told like my colleagues in the department in Amsterdam where I worked, like, okay, if you have any kind of lecture in your course related to language, anything, just let me know. I'm happy to teach. And they were like, really? Because most people don't like teaching. And they're like, okay, and then what do you want instead? I'm like, nothing. I just want to teach. And so that's how I got a lot of hours of teaching just by voluntarily doing things. Um,
So like, uh, I have to say like it's part of the reason I wanted to be a student assistant as well. Like I genuinely, so even though it's not necessarily a part of my job description to like have these extra Q&A sessions or like office hours, I do it anyway because I genuinely enjoyed like the experience of like just being able to show people something that's like it's amazing. What amazed me was that I realized how much of the things that I know I took for granted. Like
yeah,
things that I found super easy to do.
yeah,
Like just I don't even think about doing them. It could be super hard for somebody else,
yes,
right? And then like just seeing them sort of grapple with it, and then them getting it
yeah,
because of your help is,
yeah.
is super is really helpful.
Yes, and
It's
also
really fun.
I think that's my favorite part of teaching, this moment, the aha moment, when students connect into something, they have an insight, and it was from them. It's internal, but it was
Right.
occurred in that situation, that context that I was helping with. I find
Hmm.
this, yeah, that's one of the most rewarding feelings that I have in my
Yeah,
profession.
like my parents, neither of my parents went to university, right? So
Hmm.
I'm like the only person in the family to go to university. And every once in a while, I'll try to like teach my dad something I learned in class, like in the simplest possible way.
Yeah.
So like, so when I was taking calculus, I would just like try to see if I could explain something to him in a way that he could understand. Then that
Hmm.
way I know for sure that I understood it, right? Because like
Exactly. Exactly.
if I can explain to my dad what a single variable function and like what differentiation is with for a person who has no mathematics background,
Hmm.
like I feel pretty good. I'm like, okay, nice.
Yeah.
This is pretty nice.
Yeah,
This
so
is fun.
basically that's also the beauty of it. If you're able to teach something in a something very simple to someone, you can also, it's also a better way for you to learn and to know what you know about this yourself. So yes.
For sure.
Mhm.
So how did you like? What was your trajectory to end up studying language? Like how
Yeah.
did you?
Well, it's they also say like that's they said about the psychologists, right? It's not like research, it's me search. So I've always been
Yeah.
very much interested because I learned first language I learned was English, and I was slightly obsessed with like how can I get rid of my accent, and why some people have thicker accent than me, and why are some people that have better accent than me, like more native like. So that was caused my motivation into studying linguistics.
Hmm.
And in the meantime, then I learned German, and I was like, wow! But now I have a third language in the equation. And but I started learning German very early. Uh, I was exposed to the phonology of German very early, but I didn't speak the language. And eventually, I would get like, sometimes I would pass by a native speaker, sometimes, and I'd be like, this is pretty cool. And then immediately after that, we'll be like, okay, no, I hear your accent again. I'm like, oh man. So I was wondering, like, what is making like an accent different than the other, and why was it so good in certain sentences that I could pass by native speakers, and the other ones I wasn't. So yeah, so that made me. I was very interested in doing understanding also accents and prosody, and that's how I wrote my master's thesis about this. And then I want to continue. I realized that a lot of the accent was not really only the phonology, the pronunciation of the words, but it was also the melody and the rhythm with which that people would speak with. And for instance, in my case of the German, is that sometimes I put the stress in the wrong part of the word, and they
Right.
realize, okay, you're not German. So,
You're
yeah,
not
so that
German.
that led me to yeah, further investigating. I did my PhD on rhythmic processing because of that, and yeah, so it's basically my interest, personal interest, and curiosity led me to this. Um, and I think then the some of the people that encounter my life then made me stay in research. But
Nice.
actually, I left research. I left academia for 2 years.
Oh wow! Like for what? Like do you mind if I ask you why?
Sure. It was
what did you do after those 2 years? On those 2 years?
yeah. So there were a series of factors. I was not really lucky in
Hmm.
terms of the support that I had in the beginning of my PhD and my postdoc experience. So I came from a very competitive lab in the Max Planck in Germany, in Leipzig, and it's very competitive. And I'm not one of those people that do well with competition. I am more. I thrive whenever I have other individuals working together, collaborating, cooperating together. So if I can help somebody else, somebody can help me. I thrive, and I'm very happy, and I'm very productive. If I have somebody who's like, I'm not going to share my data with you because you're going to steal my things, and
Wow. Yeah,
I just get very, very unhappy.
I can
And
imagine.
yeah, so so I had so that was not an easy start for me, and also I went to the from a postdoc another also a very different environment than the department that I'm in right now. Also very competitive, very I would say they're almost autistic because people don't talk to each other. They didn't talk
Okay.
to each other. It was just very weird, and I was not doing so well with that. And I said,
Right.
okay, if this academia is like this, I'm out. I'm gonna do something else. I don't want to deal with this kind of people. And so I left. And also around that time, I had my third child, and there was a big change in our family life. So I said, you know what? I'm just
Right.
gonna stay home for a while. I'm gonna take care of my kids. I'm gonna figure out what I want to do, and we'll see. So I stayed home for a year, and then I decided that I still love teaching, and teaching was the thing that would keep me going and bright my day. So I decided that maybe I could become a high school teacher.
Hmm.
So I still need to do some education for that. So I started a new master's. I finished a master's to become a high school teacher. And then it was pretty heavy to do a second master's, second education with the kids, with the small baby as well. So I said, after the first year, I'm going to take a break before I continue the second year. And in the meantime, there were some. My husband is a professor, and he used to work in Tilburg. And one of his colleagues said, "We need somebody to teach academic skills. Can you ask Paula to apply for that? We don't have like really good people to do this." And my husband said, "Sure." And I said, "You know what? That's a good opportunity. Let me see in a different environment, in a different situation, if I like this as not or not, right?" So I did that, and it was wonderful. I loved it. The minute that I got back to the classroom, where I thought, okay, I should not have left. I should do this. And that's how I went back to slowly as a teacher to academia. And then in December 2019, um, one of my colleagues was actually a very good friend of mine, Afra Ali Shahi, and she said, "We are looking for lecturers. Do you want to apply for it?" And I said, "Sure." So I applied, and I went through the whole thing, and yes, and that's where I'm here.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
like that's. I for one, I'm glad you came back to academia and to teach
I'm
because that
also
was,
very happy to do that.
so that was a good experience for me, and I think a lot of
But also,
people will be glad to have you.
I think what's also what I would like to share with you and the other students, Udesh, is that not all the trajectories are very linear and straightforward, and people know where they want to be and they end up there.
Absolutely.
So I think I could not be in a better place because I feel very happy doing what I'm doing. I'm getting to do other research projects as well, and I'm very sometimes I even think that I, I I have this job and I still get paid. It's kind of like I do this for free,
Yeah,
you know?
it's like I can't believe they pay me to do this.
Exactly, exactly. So,
Yeah.
but I was not. I didn't have a straightforward trajectory at all. Not even since my bachelor's, because I had a bachelor in journalism, and I did a
Hmm.
second bachelor in linguistics. So I was still like
In
trying.
journalism,
Yes,
how did that happen? Like
yeah.
that's I feel like I feel like there's a story there, but.
Yeah,
maybe
that's so.
maybe another time.
It's more like I always I like writing, and I've
Right.
always enjoyed it. And actually, I published children's book in my in
Oh,
also my,
really?
yes. Yes.
That's great. I need to look that up. I don't know how I missed that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so it is, but it's in Portuguese. It's my native language. So I wrote. Yeah, I always loved writing, and once there was like in the university that I was studying in São Paulo, they had like this context of submit your book and see to participate in this context, and I did, and then I won the context, and then they published the book. So and after
Nice.
that, another editor picked up on that and published as well. So yeah,
That's amazing.
yeah, but that's just to show you that like I'm like everywhere.
No,
And
absolutely. I think it's very useful for people to hear that because, like, I'm also back in university after 5 years of working full time, right?
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it doesn't have to be the straight path.
No, no, and also like, and again, but if you have like a straightforward path, it's also fine. It's also all right. It
Hmm.
doesn't
Right.
make you less of researcher or lecturer,
Yeah.
right? So it's just like people
Yeah.
have
True. True.
different backgrounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So and also I find that also with my research or also teaching, sometimes people have a hard time understanding because I am very broad and I
Hmm.
enjoy different things. And I said, you know what? I'm here for the fun. I'm not gonna. I have like three beautiful kids at home, and I'm lucky enough that if I didn't, my husband has a steady income, for instance, but I just enjoy working. And I said, if I'm not gonna be enjoying doing this, I'm not gonna do this. So the day that I stop having fun, I'm not gonna do this anymore. I'm gonna do something else.
That definitely, like, anyone who's ever interacted with you in a classroom can definitely pick up on the fact that you're actually there to have fun and not and like it's really refreshing.
And then it's
I
funny
mean,
because
it's been my experience generally, like in the program at least so far. Like, I've never had a. I mean, people the in my experience, the instructors have been amazing, and
yeah, yeah, they are
you are
really
a
good.
shining example of that. So thank you
No,
for
thank
your
you.
effort there.
And it was
No
also very,
problem.
I was talking to a colleague of mine and she was like, so is the course fun? I'm like, I have no idea if the students are liking it, but I am loving it. I'm having a blast in my course. So, I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, like, okay, I know you have a meeting to go to, but I want to have you ask you like one more question
Hmm.
before I let you go. It's like, so I asked Peter this too, and I was
Hmm.
just like curious, know, like, what kind of future for the world would scare you? Like, if like the world turned out in one in that way, that would be a scary place for you to live. Like, what kind of world would that look like to you? I know it's a strange question, but
No, it's
something I
not.
think about.
I think there are two things that frighten me.
Yeah.
Is how we are uh, hating other
Mm.
people. I find
Yeah.
this is for me is very disturbing. The fact how you still, and again, I come from a country that has an extreme right president
Mm.
who's who has all sorts of phobia against gay women and any kind of minority. So
Mm.
it is very difficult for me to see some people pairing up with him and people that I
Mm.
know and just engaging in this kind of thoughts that makes me really upset. And the other thing, of course, it's I'm afraid that we will have no world to live in. I mean, we will because we will adapt. Humans adapt very well, but it's kind of like what we're doing, destroying the nature and stuff. So I'm a little bit afraid of how my what kind of world my kids would live in, and especially because this would mean that countries with money would be able to save themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and the countries with less money would just die and be in
Yeah,
debt.
I mean, I'm from a very similar place. Like, I'm from Sri Lanka, so I understand all the sentiments you just laid out pretty well.
Yeah,
And like, yeah. So, but I think through the work of you and like and your colleagues and people like you, I think there's definitely hope for the
yeah.
future. Like,
I
I'm optimistic. Like,
yeah,
I
no, it's
like
good. It's good, and you should be. You're the future generation, right? So
yeah.
I think there's two things that really scare me is the fact how humans can be very mean to one another when we are
I agree
mankind,
absolutely. Yeah.
and how like this also how we are dealing with the world and how we are also mean in well, if I have money, I mean, I will be fine, just so like the egoistic, selfish feeling
I
of
agree.
catching a bit.
No, I can I resonate with those
What did
like
Peter answer? What
is
did Peter answer?
Peter. Oh man, I can't remember exactly what he said last week, but like he said something like what he said was we had a very strange like random conversation, and man, I just cannot. What did he say about this? I can't remember, but like he said, but one thing he stressed a lot. He took a long time to stress was that if you need help, like if you're struggling, and if you need to like, there are resources, there are people around you. Like, find a way to the find a way to connect with people around you. Like he was pretty concerned about that. Like he was very concerned about the fact that like people might be feeling, it's a strange time. Like it's like we have all this information,
Yeah.
all these resources, all this social media, but we feel lonelier than ever,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was something he spoke about pretty clearly.
Oh,
And I think, yeah, generally speaking, it jives pretty well with what you just said. Like
yeah.
we got to
Well,
try to work together to solve these problems that we have, right? Otherwise it's not going
yeah.
to work. Like,
But it doesn't surprise me. Peter and I, we get along very well,
yeah,
and we get each other. We understand each other. So I think it's kind of like he's one of my people.
right, for sure. Well, I know you have a meeting, Dr. Rancaglia, so I'm gonna let you go.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time. Maybe
you.
we can have a chat again sometime soon. I want to
Sure.
ask you what journalism
We go for
idea at some point.
part two.
Part two, yeah, for sure. All
Okay.
right.
Thank
I'm
you.
okay.
Thank you,
All right.
Les.
No worries. I'll catch you later. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me in this conversation. I hope you got something out of that. And until next time.